Alright, future pilots, let's talk about flying. Yeah, it's amazing that feeling of freedom up in the air, but it's serious business too. We're talking safety, people. Just like building a giant jello swimming pool or designing the perfect glitter bomb trap, flying requires precision, and most importantly, learning from others. Think of this video as your pre-flight checklist for avoiding common mistakes. We've all been there, right? That first time you try something new, there's a learning curve. But up in the air, those mistakes can have bigger consequences. We're talking about the difference between a smooth flight and, well, let's just say you don't want to be on the news. Today, we're covering the top 10 mistakes beginner pilots make. We're going to break them down, show you exactly what not to do, and of course, give you the tips and tricks to stay safe up there. Knowledge is power, folks, and in this case, it might just save your tail feathers. So, buckle up, hit that subscribe button, and let's get this bird off the ground. It's time to learn from the mistakes of others so you can enjoy the wild blue yonder without becoming a cautionary tale. Now, I'm all for confidence, but there's a fine line between healthy self-assurance and, well, thinking you're invincible. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect, and it's basically when you overestimate your abilities because you don't know enough to realize you're not an expert yet. Imagine this, you've had a few successful flights, maybe even aced your first solo landing, you're feeling like Maverick from Top Gun, right? But here's the thing. Experience takes time, and overconfidence can lead to pushing your limits way too far, way too soon. Think of it like this. You wouldn't try to build a rocket to space after watching a couple of YouTube tutorials, would you? Flying is no different. Respect the learning process, respect the power of the aircraft, and most importantly, respect the skies. Remember, every flight is a learning opportunity, a chance to refine your skills and gain valuable experience. So, take it slow, build your skills gradually, and don't let that overconfidence lead you into a situation you're not prepared for. Alright, let's talk about pre-flight checks. I know, it's tempting to just hop in that cockpit and take to the skies, especially when you're excited to fly, but trust me, skipping these checks is like forgetting to put pants on before leaving the house. It's a critical step you don't want to miss. Think of your pre-flight checks like a surgeon prepping for surgery. You wouldn't want a surgeon to just dive in without making sure they have all the right tools, and that everything is in order, right? Well, your plane is your patient, and those pre-flight checks are your way of making sure it's healthy and ready to fly. We're talking about checking your fuel levels, making sure your control surfaces are moving freely, inspecting your tires and landing gear, and so much more. These checks might seem tedious, but they are absolutely essential for catching potential problems before they turn into major issues in the air. Remember, a few minutes spent on the ground doing your pre-flight checks can literally be the difference between a safe flight and a disaster. So, take your time, be thorough, and make those checks a non-negotiable part of your pre-flight routine. Alright, rookie pilots, let's talk fuel. You know that magical liquid that keeps those propellers spinning? Yeah, that stuff. It's not something you want to be messing around with. Running out of fuel mid-flight isn't like running out of gas in your car. You can't just pull over to the side of the road in the sky. Imagine this. You're cruising along, enjoying the view, and then bam, that dreaded low fuel warning light starts flashing. Suddenly, your scenic tour turns into a frantic search for a place to land. Not exactly the smooth sailing you signed up for, right? So how do you avoid this high-flying fuel fiasco? The answer is simple. Calculate, calculate, calculate. Before every flight, sit down with your charts, factor in the wind conditions, and calculate your fuel needs with a good safety margin. Trust me, it's better to have too much fuel than not enough. Alright, let's talk about air traffic control. Those awesome folks on the ground who keep the skies safe and organized. They're like the conductors of a giant airborne orchestra, making sure everyone hits their marks and stays in their lane. Now, when you're up in the air, communication is key. Think of it like playing a team sport. You gotta talk to each other to avoid collisions and confusion. Ignoring air traffic control is like trying to play basketball with your eyes closed. It's just not going to end well. So how do you stay on the right side of these air traffic superstars? It's all about clear and concise communication. Listen attentively to their instructions, repeat them back to confirm understanding, and don't be afraid to ask for clarification if something isn't clear. We've all been there, That feeling of exhaustion after a long day when your brain feels like it's running on fumes. But here's the thing, flying a plane requires your full attention and focus. It's not something you want to attempt when you're running on empty. Flying while fatigued is like trying to solve a complex math problem after pulling an all-nighter. Your brain just isn't working at its best. Your reaction time slows down, your decision-making skills take a nosedive, and you're more likely to make mistakes. And in the air, even small mistakes can have big consequences. So, how do you avoid becoming a statistic? It starts with being honest with yourself about your physical and mental state. Before every flight, take a moment to assess how you're feeling. Did you get enough sleep the night before? Are you feeling stressed or overwhelmed? Are you fighting off a cold or flu? If you answer yes to any of these questions, it's time to postpone your flight. Remember, there's no shame in prioritizing safety. It's better to delay your flight than to risk your life and the lives of others. Plus, wouldn't you rather enjoy your flight to the fullest when you're feeling refreshed and alert? Think of it this way, flying should be fun. And it's hard to have fun when you're exhausted and your eyelids feel like they're lined with lead. So do yourself a favor and make sure you're well rested and feeling your best before you take to the skies. Alright folks, let's talk about something we can all agree is unpredictable, the weather. Just like you wouldn't go on a road trip without checking the traffic, you should never, and I mean never, fly without a thorough weather briefing. Imagine this, you're cruising at a few thousand feet enjoying the view, when suddenly, you're surrounded by thick fog. You can't see anything. This is why checking the weather is so crucial. You need to know what you're getting yourself into. Weather can change in an instant, especially at higher altitudes. This isn't like a little rain shower that you can just wait out. We're talking thunderstorms, icing conditions, strong winds, stuff that can turn a pleasant flight into a nightmare. Trust me, you don't want to be caught off guard up there. Always check those forecasts, and if in doubt, stay grounded. We've talked about takeoff, we've talked about cruising, but now it's time to address the elephant in the room: landing. It's no secret that landing is one of the most critical parts of any flight. It's also one of the trickiest to master. Think about it. You're bringing a heavy machine down from thousands of feet in the air, aiming for a relatively small strip of land. It takes precision, control, and a whole lot of practice. Now I know it's tempting to rush this part, especially when you're excited to get back on solid ground, but trust me, rushing your landing is a recipe for disaster. You need to nail your approach, control your speed, and make sure you're perfectly lined up with the runway. So how do you avoid a bumpy landing? Well, the key is practice, practice, practice. But it's not just about clocking in flight hours. You need to actively work on your technique and get comfortable with different landing scenarios. One thing that helped me was practicing landings in a simulator. It allowed me to experience different wind conditions and get a feel for how the plane handles without the risk of actually being in the air. Another crucial tip is to listen to your instructor. They're there to guide you and provide feedback on your technique. Don't be afraid to ask questions and really focus on mastering the fundamentals. Remember, a good landing is a smooth landing. Take your time, focus on your controls, and you'll be touching down like a pro in no time. The more you practice, the more confident you'll become. Reviewing your landings can also be incredibly helpful. Watch footage, discuss with peers, and learn from each experience. Each landing is a learning opportunity, especially in different weather conditions. Embrace the challenge and keep improving. Alright, let's talk about two things that are absolutely crucial when you're soaring through the sky: speed and altitude. These aren't just numbers on a dial, they're your lifeline up there. Think of it like this. Your speed determines how much lift you're generating, which is what keeps you from plummeting back to Earth. Too slow and you risk stalling, too fast and you might lose control. It's all about finding that sweet spot. And then there's altitude. It's not just about avoiding mountains, it's about staying in safe airspace, communicating effectively with air traffic control, and having enough time to react if something unexpected happens. Voiceover. Now, maintaining proper speed and altitude might sound daunting, but trust me, it becomes second nature with practice. The key is to develop a keen awareness of your surroundings and your instruments. Get in the habit of regularly scanning your instruments, your altimeter, your airspeed indicator, your vertical speed indicator. These are your best friends up there. Don't just glance at them, really understand what they're telling you. And don't be afraid to make adjustments. If you find yourself drifting from your desired altitude or speed, don't hesitate to correct it. Small, smooth adjustments are key. Remember, flying is all about staying ahead of the plane. Always be aware of your surroundings, anticipate changes, and make smooth, controlled adjustments. Alright, we're getting close to the end of our list, but this next one is a biggie. Number 9, lack of mental preparation for emergencies. Now you might be thinking, Mark, I'm just a beginner. Emergencies? That's for the pros to worry about, right? Wrong. Look, flying is statistically super safe, but just like knowing where the fire exits are in a crowded theater, being mentally prepared for the unexpected in a plane is crucial. See, when things go wrong up there, they can go wrong fast. You don't want to be caught flat-footed, fumbling around for the right procedure in a high-pressure situation. That's why mental rehearsal is so important. Imagine yourself going through various emergency scenarios, visualizing your actions, and knowing the correct procedures like the back of your hand. It's like building that muscle memory, but for your brain. Now I know what you're thinking. Mark, how on earth am I supposed to practice for emergencies without actually, having an emergency mid-flight? And you're right, we don't want you guys freaking out and pulling the emergency landing gear on a perfectly good plane ride. That's where your flight instructor comes in. They're like that friend who helps you practice your dance moves before the big school dance, but instead of embarrassing yourself on the dance floor, you're avoiding, an unplanned landing in a cornfield. Talk to your instructor about running through different emergency scenarios in the simulator. Trust me, these simulations are the closest you can get to the real deal without actually putting yourself in danger. The key takeaway here is this: don't wait for an emergency to happen before you start thinking about how you'll react. Be proactive, be prepared, and you'll be ready to handle whatever comes your way. Remember, the more you practice, the more confident you'll become. Confidence is key in handling emergencies. So take the time to go over these scenarios regularly. It's not just about knowing the procedures, but about being able to execute them under pressure. This preparation can make all the difference in ensuring a safe outcome for you and your passengers. So, gear up, stay sharp, and always be ready for the unexpected. Your future self will thank you. And last but not least, number 10 on our list of beginner pilot blunders is incorrect crosswind landing technique. Now, if you're new to flying, you might be wondering, what in the world is a crosswind landing? Well, imagine this. You're coming in for a landing, everything seems perfect, and then, bam! A gust of wind hits you from the side, trying to push your plane off course. That, my friends, is a crosswind, and let me tell you, they can turn a perfectly good landing into a white-knuckle experience. See, when you're landing with a crosswind, you can't just aim for the runway like you normally would. You have to compensate for the wind's sideways push, adjusting your plane's angle, and keeping those wings nice and level. It's like trying to walk in a straight line while someone's trying to push you over. You need to maintain your balance and keep moving forward. This technique, my friends, is called crabbing, and it's essential for nailing those landings when the wind decides to have a mind of its own. Now, mastering the crosswind landing takes practice. There's no doubt about it. It's like learning to ride a bike. You're gonna wobble, you might even fall a few times, hopefully not literally, but with persistence, you'll get there. The key is to start practicing in mild crosswind conditions with your instructor by your side. They'll guide you through the necessary adjustments, helping you get a feel for how the wind affects your plane's movement. And as you get more comfortable, you can gradually increase the challenge, tackling stronger crosswinds and different wind angles. It's like leveling up in a video game, except instead of earning virtual badges, you're earning real-life piloting skills. Remember, a good landing is a controlled landing. It's about precision and making the right adjustments at the right time. So don't be afraid to go around and try again if you're not feeling confident. Each attempt is a learning experience, bringing you one step closer to mastering the skies. Well, there you have it, folks. Our top 10 common mistakes made by beginner pilots. Flying is one of the most thrilling experiences, but it comes with responsibilities. Avoid these common mistakes, and you'll not only fly safer, but also grow more confident with every flight. Remember, every pilot makes mistakes. It's part of the learning process. The important thing is to learn from those mistakes and never stop seeking knowledge. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and stay tuned for more insights into the world of aviation. Fly safe.